Greetings and welcome back. This is Senior English B, and our objective today is to finish our comments on Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach on page 1036, and then from there to move on to one other Arnold poem, and then a couple of offerings from A.E. Housman. So let's go quickly. Dover Beach is Matthew Arnold's comment about what went wrong. What went wrong? Remember when we talked, I'm on the whiteboard for a second, I apologize. Remember when we talked about Tennyson, we said that by the 1880s, okay, anywhere, that 1888 is a good date, we had this problem in England that looked something like this. Remember this? Where you have the rise of your civilization, and then you have the fall of your civilization with a looking back over the cultural shoulder to a golden age, where everything used to be better than it is now. Remember my shoe factory story with Mr. Nelson. That moment in English history will elicit a lot of poets, writers, artists, who will ask what went wrong. Like, how come this? How come this? Right? Dover Beach is Matthew Arnold's answer to what went wrong. The way he does it, though, is to write a dramatic monologue, where he imagines a guy standing at the window of a small hut overlooking Dover Cliff, that amazing structure on the eastern side of England, listening to the waves come in on that not sandy beach, but rocky beach. And he makes observation in the first stanza that the sound, the grating sound of that water reminds him, stanza 2, of the great writer Sophocles, who said every time he heard the ocean hitting on the beach, he was reminded of human misery and how wretched life is. Stanza 3. It's at stanza 3 that finally we're going to see Arnold's reason for this. The sea of faith was once too at the full. Go ahead and look at it with me. Stanza 3. And round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. There was a time, he says, we were with Mr. Nelson on this topic yesterday. There was a time, he says, in England, when the English people were supported, comforted. The girdle is a comfort, support, worn around the midsection by both men as well as women to support. There was a time when religious faith supported us, he says. But, keep reading with me, now I only hear its melancholy, long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges dreary, naked shingles of the world. There was a time, he says, watch my whiteboard, there was a time, he says, when the sea of faith supported English people. When Mr. Nelson in our shoe factory story and Miss Keller had no fear, no doubts about the future because they understood everything was taken care of. They had a belief. The sea of faith once did that. Not anymore. Now see my whiteboard? Not anymore. Stanza 4. Ah, love, his girl, let us be true to one another. For the world, which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither. Now look at this list. This is all the stuff, are you ready for this? Before, we had all these things. Now, we got nothing. We got nothing. And he's going to finish with one of the most disturbing word pictures of all time. But first, let's see the we got nothing list. This is what's now missing. By 1888, this is for Arnold, all the things that are missing. By the way, Mr. Nelson, sometime after coming home from having lost his job at the shoe factory and not getting another job, at some point, he would say about this list, you know what? There's a lot of this list that I ain't got anymore that I used to have. Take a look at it, what this list is. The list starting at line, 33 or so. No joy, no love, no light. We said that doesn't mean they don't have fluorescent light bulbs. That's not what he's talking about, right? Here, what does light mean? He says there's no light. What does light mean?
Joy.
Joy.
And hope.
Hope. after the shoe factory loss of a job, Nelson might begin to think, dude, this life just kind of stinks. No light, keep going. No certitude. That was an intriguing word for us. That word comes, we get our word certain or certainty. In other words, Nelson all of a sudden isn't sure anymore about the way the world is. And Miss Keller is going to look at Nelson and say, really? You lost your job? And Nelson's going to be like, dude, it wasn't my fault. I was a really good worker. To which, by the way, Mr. Brown, the owner of the factory, would say, he was my best worker. Well, dude, why did you lay him off then? See, that's the Industrial Revolution. Because that machine can outwork Brown no matter how, or can outwork Nelson no matter how good a worker Nelson is. That's just the way. Well, Nelson then leads to say, well, then what is certain anymore? What can I absolutely be sure of? Arnold says, not much. Keep looking. The next one, no peace. What do we mean here? Think about it. We're about, 20 years away from the First World War happening in 1914. See, that's going to be one of the first moments of the 20th century that will just completely rock Nelson's world. Why? Nelson won't go to fight there most likely, but his boy will. His boy will. And he'll come back, if he does come back, seriously scarred. He'll never be the same. His boy will never be the same after 1914. We'll get to the view of T.S. Eliot and the Hollow Men next week. It ain't a pretty picture. Arnold is to some degree like a prophet. He already sees it coming. He says, there isn't any peace and no help for pain. Is Nelson in pain after he and Keller lose the job in his shoe factory? You bet. What do they get for some kind of answer from English government? Sorry, it's just the way it is. You know, scrap a living now. That's the best you can do, and hope to raise your children with some kind of education. That's the only thing we can say to you. We'll try to improve education for your kids. Ain't much we can do for you. What's the last word picture? Notice this stanza began with him saying, "Ah, love, let us be true to one another!" exclamation mark. And it finishes with one of the most disturbing word pictures. I'm sorry I ran out of time yesterday. Now I'm ready to share it with you. Okay, you can just put it on your pens for a second. I'll just give it to you this way. Imagine this. All the students of our school are called together to the gymnasium. Mr. Dewar comes on the announcements and says, we're going to do this amazing thing. Come down to the gym. There's buzz. Everyone's buzzing. What's going on? What's going on? When we get in there, all of the freshmen are called down to the floor of the and all of the guys on one side, all of the girls on the other side of the gym floor, standing off the floor. Mr. Dewar comes to the front of in the middle of the gym and he says, we are about to engage and watch an amazing performance. I have come into some money. I am about to give $1,000 cash to every single girl or boy in the freshman class. Now all of a sudden the seniors are like, whoa, 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 why are they getting it? Why don't we? Because the seniors need to watch this. Watch what? Here in a moment, Dewar says, I'm going to blow a whistle. And when I blow a whistle, all the guys and the girls are going to run across the floor to the other side. They have to avoid running into each other. And the first group that completely gets to the other side of the floor, they're the winners, and each one of them gets $1,000 cash and the rest of the day off to go spend it. Everybody's like, whoa, okay, we're going to watch this. On your marks, get set, go. And I mean those little freshmen, they are just ready to go. They are ready to take off. And when he says go, they start running as hard as they can. Guys on one side, girls on the other. 5 steps from the center line, Dewar turns out the lights in the gym. And he's made it so that the entire room is so dark, the exit signs, even light bulbs, are turned off. Even though that's against the rules, Mr. Light. So that there is absolutely no light of any kind in that gym. Got this word picture in your head? Question. The only thing you could do is to hear it. You ain't going to see it. You're in total darkness. And these kids are running at full speed when the lights go out. That's the word picture of this poem. That's how this poem ends. That's what he calls living in England in 1880s. Look at it with me. And we are here as on a darkling, that means dark, plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. He says, this is what England has become. We're like at war with each other, only we're fighting in the dark. We have no idea even who we're killing. All we can do is scream and fight. We've got no idea. Let's point out now how dark a picture this is for the first 6 lines of this poem. Read them again with me. See, and some of you will immediately identify, whoa, that is a dark picture. Note the irony of the opening 6 lines then. Read it with me again. The sea is calm tonight. It's so nice outside. And the end of the poem is this. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full. The moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window. Sweet is the night air. Let's identify the way in which Arnold is making a dark, dark observation. He will begin by making you, the reader, think this is a love poem. Love, let us be true to one another is the way the final stanza ends. And yet the word picture of what England has become for Nelson and Keller and the loss of his job and for millions of others in England, this is what it's become. Complete uncertainty. Why? Stanza 3. What is it that has been lost? This is the conservative view of Matthew Arnold. What is it that has been lost that has led to this? Stanza 3. Say it out loud. What is it that he says? What is it that's been lost, Mr. Nelson? The sea. Stanza 3. The sea of faith was once to it the full. We lost our capacity to believe, especially in divinity. And when that happened, everything starts going downhill. That's Arnold's view. Put a note to yourself at 3A. T.S. Eliot will have a very similar view when we hit him next week in the Hollow Man. Very similar view. All right, let's go quickly now to the final poems remaining in our time remaining. We don't have much time. What I'm going to do here is maybe make more observations about the poem itself than actually working specifically with the poem, just to make sure that we get them all covered. To Marguerite continued. Again, you want to be writing this information down. You're going to go back and work on your own with some of these poems. And I apologize, I don't get to spend more time with these poems because they're wonderful. To Marguerite continued compares people to islands. That's the central word picture. Write that down. That's very important. Where once all of those different islands were part of a single continent or piece of ground. The speaker in the poem will describe 2 things. Isolation, dislocation. And secondly, a longing to somehow connect again, back again. That we mortal millions, the line in the poem, will feel. In other words, Arnold playing the same game again. We're somehow dislocated from each other, and we realize that, and we want to come back together and be together again, but for whatever reason, we just can't seem to do it, can't seem to accomplish it. Addressing his thoughts to a woman he calls Marguerite, the speaker implies that they, like the islands, have been separated from each other. Let's read it together. Yes, in the sea of life enisled, with echoing straits between us thrown, dotting the shoreless watery wild, we mortal millions live alone. The islands feel the elapsing flow, and then their endless bounds they know. And when the moon their hollows light, and they are swept by balms of spring, and in their glens or starry nights the nightingales divinely sing, and lovely notes from shore to shore across the sounds and channels pour. Oh, then a longing like despair is to their farthest caverns sent. For surely once, they feel, we were part of a single continent. Now round us spreads the watery plain. Oh, might our marges meet again. Who ordered that their longings' fire should be as soon as kindled cool, who renders vain their deep desires? A God their severance ruled, and bade betwixt their shores to be the unplumbed salt estranging sea. About this same time, a great writer, I'm working 3A now, a great writer named Conrad will write a famous little novel called Heart of Darkness, in which this line appears. We live as we dream alone. Echoing the very same sentiments. We live as we dream alone. All right, I'm going to move now quickly to the poetry of Housman. We're trying to get to the end of all of this. To an athlete dying young. You do not understand this poem if you don't understand the little picture there on 1043. In the old days, when you won a race, a lot of times, or won a victory, they would put you on the shoulders and they would carry you through town as your "yay, we're number one" thing. Got it? Housman, seeing this, is reminded, because here's what happens. He goes to the death of a young athlete. The young person died before his prime. And he's being taken to the grave. How do they carry him? Inside of a box called a... How do they carry that coffin? They put it on their shoulders and carry it as a group. And in that moment, the brilliant poet, there's a contiguity. The time you won your town the race, we cheered you through the marketplace. Man and boy stood cheering by, and home we brought you shoulder high. Today the road all runners run, all runners come. Shoulder high we bring you home, and set you at your threshold down, townsman of a stiller town. Smart lad to slip the tides away from fields where glory does not stay. And early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. Eyes the shady night is shut, cannot see the record cut, and silence sounds no worse than cheers after earth has stopped the ears. Now you will not swell the rout of lads that wore their honors out, runners whom renown outran, and the name died before the man. So set before its echoes fade, the fleet foot on the sill of shade, and hold to the low lintel up the still defended challenge cup, and round that early laureled head will flock to gaze the strengthless dead, and find unwithered on its curls the garland breather than a girl's. The Greeks in the first Olympics didn't give you money, didn't give you endorsements if you won. You didn't even get a medal. All you got was a branch from a special tree called the laurel tree, and they put it around your head, and it gave you acclaim. Housman points out that while it's sad the young athlete dying doesn't get to continue to live, the one thing he doesn't have to endure is growing old and watching other young runners pass him up. And then he becomes a forgotten man, kind of like Tennyson's Ulysses at the beginning of Ulysses, at little profits that an idle king by the still hearth among its barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I meet and dole unequal laws into a savage race. Remember that hoard and sleep and, what did he say? No, not me. In other words, you live long enough, you become forgotten. He says, so it's sad that the young athlete dies young, but there is the advantage at least that he will be remembered in his prime. Right? When I was 1 in 20 is pure irony. Let's take a look at it. When I was 1 in 20, I heard a wise man say, give crowns and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away. Don't what? What was the old fart's advice to him? You can give your money away, but don't what? Don't fall in love, whatever you do. Give pearls away and rubies, but keep your fancy free. But I was 1 in 20. No use to talk to me when he's 21. When I was 1 in 20, I heard him say again, the heart out of the bosom was never given in vain. 'Tis paid with sighs of plenty and sold for endless rue. You give your heart away, you're going to pay for it by sadness. And I am 2 in 20. And oh, 'tis true, 'tis true. Uh-oh, what happened between 21 and 22? Yeah, the kid didn't listen to the old fart, fell in love, and then what? Yeah. Let's go to Darkling Thrush. Tom's Hardy. We got 2 poems by Hardy now. At the end of the... I'm working now on page 1050. At the end of the day, Hardy is listening to a thrush, a bird, singing at the end of the day. Okay? It's cold, it's gloomy, it's gray outside. It's the last day. This is crucial to understand. Hardy wrote this poem December 31st, 1899. The last day of the century. Right before the January 1st, 1900. First day of the new century. The speaker in the poem hears the joyful singing of the old frail thrush, wonders why the bird feels hopeful enough to sing so ecstatically when he himself feels so despairing. So in other words, this is a poem where the poet speaker is saying, I don't think the 20th century is going to be that great. 14 years later, the most horrific war in the history of warfare happens. It's like Hardy had a sense things are not going so well. Finally, I want to spend my time with Are You Digging on My Grave? This is a darkly, darkly ironic poem. Where, and if you don't understand what I'm about to say, this poem makes no sense. Once you do, it's kind of a dark, ha-ha, funny poem. The speaker of the poem is a woman who has already died. She's in her grave, and she hears someone digging on her grave, and she assumes then it must be somebody. Somebody has come to her graveside. Oh, how sweet. Take a look. I'm on 1052. Are you digging on my grave, my loved one? Her husband. Planting rue? No. Yesterday, your guy went to wed one of the brightest wealth is bred. It cannot hurt her now, he said, that I should not be true. No, not your guy. Then who's digging on my grave? My nearest, dearest kin? Family. No. They sit and think, what use? What good will planting flowers produce? No tendrils of her mound can loose her spirit from death's gin. There's no reason to give her flowers. She's dead and gone. It's not like she's going to know. But somebody digs upon my grave. My enemy. Oh, plotting sly. No. When she heard that you'd passed the gate that shuts on flesh soon or late, she thought you no more worth her hate and cares not where you lie. Whoa, it's not even your enemy who's maybe come to dig up your bones. No, she doesn't carry this. She totally forgot about you. Then who's digging on my grave? Say, since I have not guessed. Oh, it is I, my mistress dear, your little dog who still lives near. And much I hope my movements here have not disturbed your rest. Oh, yes, you dig upon my grave. Why flashed it not on me? The one true heart was left behind. What feeling do we ever find to equal among humankind? A dog's fidelity. Yes, at least my little dog remembered me. The dog. Mistress, I dug upon your grave to bury a bone, in case I should be hungry near this spot when passing on my daily trot. I am sorry, but I quite forgot it was your resting place. Whoa! Jot down in your notes real quickly at 2A. What is this poem saying? Mr. Armsbaugh says that's funny. What does this poem say about being remembered?
When you're dead, you're gone.
When you're dead, you're gone. Keep going.
Nobody remembers you.
Nobody remembers?
After you're dead.
After you're dead and gone. It's at least after a time of it. Jot down at 3B. Do you agree with this? Do you think that it's possible that no matter who you are, right? Isn't this true, Mr. Durant? Even as we speak, some 8th grader looks up from her history book and says to her history teacher, what do we got to learn about this guy for? The guy being Abraham Lincoln. If Lincoln even, and the amazing life of Lincoln even, receives that kind of a response at some point in the future, what are the odds that your life will be remembered at all? Happy or sad poem?
And sad.
Well, why does Armsbaugh say, as most of us say, this is kind of darkly funny, though? Oh, the dog. Oh, sorry, I'd forgotten you were buried here. Sorry, my bad.
So is Porphyria's Lover. That's a
dark poem as well. Let's point out something. Porphyria's Lover is a poem from this Victorian period as well. Let's say it this way. Once Nelson loses his job, he and Keller have a couple of options in regards to how they think about it. One way is to be darkly depressed all the time. The other is to kind of become darkly humorous about it. Right? So you tell jokes about it, but they're like not ha-ha funny jokes, but more like, well, I guess I'm going to have to go out and start selling body parts, cut off body parts so we can have something to eat. It's kind of funny that Nelson would say that to Keller after he loses his job. But on the other hand, it's not really ha-ha funny. It's more like, okay, what are you going to do? What do they say? Laugh or cry? If you're not going to cry about it, I guess you laugh about it. That's kind of the Victorian period. Now, finally, for your notes, let's say this. This time period in English thought is a time period of great change. Tremendous change. Let's skip back to 1050 and I'll read till the bell rings. Read it with me. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre gray and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all humankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. Everyone's inside because it's nasty outside. The land's sharp features seemed to be the century's corpse outline. His crypt, the cloudy canopy, the wind, his death lament, the ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken, hard, and dry, and every spirit upon earth seemed favorless as I. At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs overhead in a full-hearted, even song of joy illimited. An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small, in blast beruffled plume, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the growing gloom. So little cause for carolings of such ecstatic sound was written on terrestrial things afar or nigh around, that I could think there trembled through his happy good night air some blessed, do you see the word is capitalized? Hope, whereof he knew, and I was unaware. This poem will speak to Nelson and to Keller after losing that job. Maybe there's still hope. If a bird can sing, maybe there's still hope. Wait a minute. Writing poems about birds happened in the Romantic period as well. Jot down at 3A, do you remember? Keats wrote a poem to a nightingale, and Shelley wrote a poem, especially, remember, to the skylark who continues to sing throughout the day. The bird becomes an important symbol for people of this time. If the bird can keep singing in the middle of the storm, maybe so can I. And to that degree, there still seems to be, what's the capitalized word? Hope. It will be T.S. Eliot that will take that hope and will roll it up in a ball, throw it on the ground, and smash it in his poem, Hollow Men. We are the hollow men. We are the stuffed men, leaning together, headpiece filled with straw. Alas, our dried voices when we whisper are quiet and meaningless as wind in dry grass or rat's feet over broken glass in our dry cellar. The opening lines of the Hollow Men, we will meet it next week. Have good 3 days of work with Miss Laird, and I will see you back on Monday. Do nice things with your bodies, please.